Okay, we are down to the wire, down to the last week in the summer home landscape design course. And you should be starting or fully embroiled in working on your own designs. So I thought I would just start one so you can see how loose it is and how easy flowing it is. And I'm not stressing out. I'm really, in a good mindset. I'm here to have fun. Hopefully you are here as well to have fun. So what I've done is I printed out, this is Trisha's plant palette project, and I was just looking at her plant combinations and some of the plants that she chose. So now, let's pretend I'm Trisha for a second. I've got this garden bed. I don't know what shape she's doing, or I do, I just don't remember at the moment. But on my little demonstration paper, I have a gridded sheet. 1 square equals 1 foot. So it's 25 feet along this long dimension, 12 feet here. So now I can start putting plants in. Well, how do you even begin? So way back when we did the plant lectures, I think I went through this slide in the planting design lecture, but I went ahead and I uploaded it as a standalone 1-page handout because it is so helpful. So, and basically what it's showing is, this is the plan view drawing here, and here's the corresponding view from the side, right? So it's asking, how much stuff do I put in? Do I put in all of the plants that I came up with in my plant palette project? Or is that too many? Should I only put in half? Well, it really depends. I think most of you are taking on spaces that are for entertaining or looking out a window, places where people might be looking at it for a period of time or hanging out in it for a period of time. So if that's the case, you probably want more variety. So what this handout is showing is, it's perfectly acceptable to fill up that whole square with one plant, right? So let's just say it's a ground cover, it would just look like this. So that has low variety, but that's not necessarily bad if it's a garden or a planting bed that someone is going to be driving by really quickly or going by on a bicycle or a scooter. They're not going to really appreciate a lot of stuff, right? Because they're going by too fast. So that would be fine. But if you're like, well, I'd like a little bit more variety, it's like, well, let's interplant something in there. So now it's the same whatever ground cover you have chosen. And now we're just going to put some stuff in there that comes up at a time of the year, does its thing, goes, woohoo, I'm here, and then it goes away, right? So now if you want more and more, you just start eliminating some of that ground cover. It's like, all right, I'm going to take away some of this to make room for some shrubs. Or I'm going to take away even more. I'm going to leave that amount. I'm going to add in my 3 shrubs. I still have some of the stuff popping up, but now I'm going to add a tree, right? So now this starts to become a much more composed garden, and it has more interest. So if someone is sitting looking at this garden, it should have enough to hold someone's attention, right? And then the very last example is, okay, now I'm using the whole square. I've mixed up some of the 3 bigger things over here I've left in my tree. I've still left some of the ground cover, and there's a few things popping up in there, but now there's a lot more going on, right? So you get the idea. You can just keep going and going and going. And there's really no right or wrong for any of these. It really just depends on the context and what your goals are for the space, or if you're designing for someone else, what the client's goals are. So it's completely up to you. But when we start to design, it's like, okay, that's all well and good, and I still don't really know how to start putting stuff together. So here's the big dollar information that no one's going to tell you about in a book. And in fact, I joke a lot of the planting design books, they're not really great at explaining, here is how you start doing the plan. And I swear to God, even one book says, pick up a pencil and start drawing. It's like, well, that's not helpful for students at all. So here's the biggest tip. And most designers, I believe, will start with the biggest things first, right? So you put in the bigger things, the medium things, and then your filler things, right? Or you might do, let me put in my focal point plants, like, or my specimen plants first. Then I'm going to do my medium level stuff, and then my ground cover, right? So pretty much however your brain wants to tackle this is totally fine. I am often of the mode where I'm going to put in my big stuff first. So when I first start drawing stuff, I'm just going to be loosely bubbling stuff. So let's see, Trisha has like a purple smoke bush. That's an awesome tree. So I'm just going to start and put in like one big smoke bush. And I'm going to draw it. So that's about how, it's only like 12 feet. So that's fine. I want to be pretty close to the size that it is, but it doesn't have to be like spot on yet. I don't want to spend a lot of time drawing a gorgeously drawn symbol because I'll probably change it 10 times, right? So you want to use your energy and your time efficiently and effectively. So I'll put in a big tree. I might want to balance some of that on the other side. And I just start drawing in some things that start to take up space, right? And I want to fill up this whole space. I don't want to have a sea of mulch at the end. I don't want to have a lot of places where weeds can pop up. I might even come in and do, another big thing here. And then I've got this weird little space here. So I might say, well, okay, that's just going to be like a tall perennial. And I might remind myself that I want to put a tall perennial in there. So things like, if you know ironweed, it's pretty small at the base, but then it gets really tall. Like it can get 6 to 8 feet tall, and it'll be arching at the top, but the base is tiny. So it would actually come up and come over these, but the base is small. So I'll just put it in like that. And then maybe I work in some other perennials, and I kind of just fill up the space, and I try to make circles that are about the same size. But again, it's not a finished drawing, so I'm just trying to see what things look like. And then this is our tree, so we would have, and I don't know if you know smoke bush, but it does, if it's nicely limbed up, it'll have space underneath. So you could plant some things up underneath it, but it does require quite a bit of maintenance to make it look this nice. So, but I don't want to leave it just completely bare underneath there. So I might say, well, let's come in with some other smaller shrubs on the back side, and then maybe let's just do like a ground cover. And I use this type of line a lot. I call it my caffeinated squiggle. So either you have a lot of caffeine or you just pretend like you've had a lot of caffeine. And it looks really good. It's not really exacting. It doesn't take a lot of skill to do. So there's a bed. Boom, woo, beautiful, right? You're like, yeah, and that is not beautiful at all. That's okay. It will be. So if I'm not happy with anything, this is where I come in and I change it, right? So it might be that I don't like this much ground cover, so I want to take some of that away. And I might, I'm not going to waste time erasing a whole lot, right? And so I might put in some perennials there, and I might put in like another plant here that I want to be different than these, but in this bubble stage, it's like, okay, well, they're kind of similar in size. So I want to remind myself that these guys are the same. So I'm going to connect them, and then this guy's something different, right? So I'm going to eliminate some of that ground cover, pull that in, and I'm going to pull it in here. So I like that, right? If you were here, I would ask you, how do you guys like it? What else do you want to change? And so I think this is fine. So, at this point, I like how I filled up the bed. I know that I have a good variety in terms of tall things because I have a tree. I have, probably like a large shrub, medium shrubs, tall perennials, shorter perennials, and some ground cover. So I have a good mix of stuff, but I don't know what anything is other than this tree that we started with. So this was the smoke bush, and that has really cool purple leaves. It's deciduous. And Trisha has actually come up with a really cool plant palette, a lot of purples and yellows. So she has thistle, chamomile, Japanese cedar, this cool purple sedum. Sorry, Ruth. I have Justice Ginsburg here, and she's a little bit in the way. She's giving me direction and inspiration. And then she also has some really cool chartreuse things. Oh, the maple. Oh my God. Should we do the maple or should we do the smoke bush? Both are equally cool trees, right? And then she's got some other things in there. So it might be that maybe we say, all right, I really like the sedum idea. So I'm gonna get this back where you can see it. I think these should be the sedum. I don't know which one yet. But maybe if it's the purple sedum, I'm gonna go with my gut. We're gonna leave this the purple smoke bush. Now we're repeating the purple on this side with the sedum. She's got a yellow black-eyed Susan. So maybe, actually, okay, let's do this. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna say these guys are the sedums. Doot, doot, doot. And then these are the black-eyed Susans. And so on the other video that I uploaded today, I explained that I just do little cryptic reminders. So I know that, you know, these are black-eyed Susans in this mass. These are sedums here. And now I'm like, okay, this is like up for a lot longer of the year than this. This has more interest. So it's kind of nice to have that up front. These are tucked in. So when they're up and doing their thing, they look amazing. But when they're gone, it's okay as long as this guy is going to be doing something when the black-eyed Susan isn't going, and this guy has something to offer when the black-eyed Susans aren't going, right? So I like having them tucked in there. I like the ironweed thing, so I'm just going to say that's ironweed. Sorry, Trisha, I don't know if that was on your list. I don't think so, but and it might be that we say this is the elderberry. I love that too, and that's a fern leaf thing. So we've got a coarser texture, like medium coarse texture. This is pretty fine textured. So I'm kind of bringing those design principles back in. Oh, see, and now it's like, I don't know that I can work in all of her plants in my little bed. Hopefully the space she's working in is much bigger. But that gives you an idea, right? So now, because I don't want this video to be really long, I find a circle template. And oops, not that one. How many circle templates do you have, Anne? A lot. All right, so now it's like, okay, I'm gonna draw these a little more exact. I'm gonna use my circle template just to make sure that I draw all these black-eyed Susans at the same size, so I know that when I go shopping, I can actually fit them all in the right bed, or fit them all in the bed. I get these in there. And let's get the elderberry in there. And that's enough, right? And so now, if you went ahead and bought those like Micron pens, right? These disposable tech pens. These are the ones that have, and you didn't have to, right? But if you really, really love landscape design and you want this to look, you know, as awesome as possible, feel free, right? So these are pens that come in different nib sizes. So the higher the number, the thicker the nib. So the 08 is the fattest line, and I have an 003, which is my thinnest line, right? And that's what creates depth in this two-dimensional drawing, right? So I'm going to take my 08 and I'm going to use it to do my smoke bush. And so you could just do a simple circle, right? You could just outline it. Boom, you don't need to do any crazy symbols. That's fine. But since I'm not, and I'm on the fence because I like doing some details. One of the things I like to do is, if you look at the leaves of this purple smoke bush, they're fairly rounded, right? So if you can hint at the design characteristics of a plant, like what is most obvious, and kind of pull that out, that is often really helpful, like in a drawing. So I also uploaded this handout, and I'm showing plants in plan view and what they look like from the side in elevation. And so you can see that, you know, they're not botanical illustrations, they're not exact representations of plants, but a lot of times if there's a distinct characteristic that I can call out, I will include that. For example, if you look at the not the black-eyed Susan, this is a purple coneflower, so the petals here droop, right? It sounds bad, but they just point downward. I shouldn't say droop. And so anybody who sees that knows plants a little bit would say, oh, I recognize that as a purple coneflower. Versus like over here, a little less common of a plant, but rattlesnake master, when it flowers, it branches just like this. It looks a little strange, but I've captured that in the drawing. So even when we're doing plan view, and I'm like, all right, this purple smoke bush has rounded leaves, I actually might come in and just follow my pencil outline that I've done. And I'm going to do some leaves. I'm not going to fill it all in. which is my, here we go. I'm going to get the shady side really dense. And so whenever I do shade, it's always like the lower right. Doesn't matter which way is north. It just graphically, it looks better that way. So I come in and I'm just going to do heavy leaves like this. And then just to complete it, I might do like a few up here. But I'm not going to follow the line exactly. But our brains will fill in the rest. We don't need to show each and every bit of that circle, right? And then I'll just darken up my circle there. But now when I go to do that ground cover underneath, which again, yet I don't know what it is, I'm going to use a much finer pen. So I'm going to do my caffeinated squiggle again. But now it's in the thinnest pen. And so that's what helps the drawing to read, right? Using a combination of line weights. So some things pop out and some things sit down on the ground. So anything that's tall, like the tallest elements, get the thickest pen, and the things that are closer to the ground get the thinnest pen, right? All right, so that might look a little weird. I probably should have just done a simple circle, but I wanted to show you something different. For the elderberry, maybe we just do like a fairly simple circle there, and I'm using a mid-range pen weight. This is the 05, and I'm just gonna do that. For the sedum, I'm going to use like even smaller one that also has pretty rounded leaves. So maybe I do just kind of this looping thing. Silence while she draws. With my face-to-face students, they always laugh because I usually do some sort of weird sound effects when I'm drawing. Even when I'm designing at home, I'm usually going do-do-do-do-do-do while I'm drawing. I don't know why, I just do that. And then the Black-Eyed Susan, let's just do something a little bit different, just to highlight that they're different. And I might just make this weird stop sign kind of symbol. And then I'll get even in the middle there. Okay, so it's looking, a little bit messy. Let me just show you one other thing. Doing an evergreen, and actually I need to do my circle template here, otherwise I'll get kind of crazy off. But sometimes perfect circles are hard to do, so I'm just gonna, I don't know what this plant is yet. And sometimes even when I ink a drawing, I'm not quite sure what the plant is I'm gonna use. But to differentiate evergreens, we usually do a symbol that looks like this, if it's a needle evergreen, right? And so we just kind of be careful, and all of them should point to the center of the circle. And every once in a while, it's almost like a heart monitor thing, that they're pretty consistent, and then every once in a while it kind of jumps up a little bit bigger. And it's okay if some of your lines overlap. It's not a big deal. Oh, see, there's the sound effects. You just don't want me to start singing. No one wants to hear that. It's terrible. All right, and so now, like when this dries, let me grab an eraser. When it dries, you can erase the pencil, and then it looks really clean, and everything is drawn to the right size, when you've actually drawn everything. And I'm erasing that early ground cover line, coming over here to erasing the pencil. Right, and so it starts to look lovely. Right, and really, it's not that the graphics are that fancy. And frankly, you could do your plan with all circles, simple circles, not doing any fancy graphics like that. In fact, for landscape architecture, a true planting plan is just straight circles, right? Because it's a construction document, so they're not looking for anything to be super fancy. So you could do all circles, simple circles, but you would still change up the line weight, and that would still end up looking like a lovely, lovely plan. Now, the other drawing that I uploaded for you as a separate handout today is this. Oops, this. Right, and so this is a plan I did several years ago, and I like to keep, I have like black and white copies, and I have color copies, which I didn't print out for today, but the black and white one I think is my favorite because there's so much in here. I tend to design very plant heavy, and I tend to attract clients that also like plant heavy designs. And so even though it's all black and white, it is still very clear. It's easy to read. So if you notice, like my trees, I have kept them really simple. They're a heavier line weight. And as you go down to the ground plane, the pen gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And then I typically will also do more detail. So on the ground plane, I'll take that same caffeinated squiggle that I started here, but I'm going to fill it in, right? So I've squiggled all through there. And then again, bringing in that stylistic quality of plants. So I do this for bananas, right? So you could probably use it for cannas too, but I usually don't use cannas in my designs. But when you see this, it's obviously a banana, right? And then I do my gingers, my tropical gingers like this. So it ends up looking quite beautiful as a black and white drawing, right? And then if you go to render it or color it, it takes a lot less rendering to make it look amazing. And this, I think, is the easier part, right? I have a lot of practice in like 30 years in doing this. So it just takes practice, right? So I've also uploaded a ton of graphic samples that kind of take you through. Here's how you do, like, simple circles are fine. If you want to jazz it up a little bit, here's what it looks like. And then you could get fancier and fancier depending on how much time you have and what you're trying to communicate in your drawing. So I've uploaded that for you as well. So hopefully that will get you started. I am looking forward to seeing all your projects. This week, if you have any problems at all or questions, or if you want to run early ideas by me ahead of time, please don't hesitate. So for now, this is Justice Ruth Ginsburg and I signing off. Bye, everybody.